increase their.
So today's guest is Steve Brown. Steve is the CEO of Moonpull. Moonpull helps clients improve their supplier and customer relationships by providing analytics on how their affiliate tracking platforms, by that I mean their advertisers, their networks, and their publishers are performing. It highlights the causes of tracking errors and facilitates efficient remedies. It's also worth pointing out that Steve has sold a business to AOL. He's an investor and has been a CEO that I reported to about 12 or 13 years ago, and I can personally vouch for his knowledge and ability. So I really wanted to get Steve on. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Matt. Nice to be here.
So tell me more about Moonpull.
So Moonpull's a platform that I've had an itch to develop probably for more than 15 years. In affiliate marketing, I've run networks, I've worked for publishers, and unlike other advertising channels, the publisher who's displaying the ad only gets paid if a user buys. So it's imperative that the tracking works all the way through to the very end. And if you work at a network, clearly you've got your finger on the pulse and you know when it's breaking, when it's not breaking, what the causes of the breakage are. And it's very important if you're providing a service to other people that it works. So you almost have a no stone unturned approach to running the business. And one of the phrases I've often used is small lies become big lies. So small tracking issues can diverge into large tracking issues. So you've got to stop that divergence sort of at the get-go. But one of the challenges is, as a network, you're reliant on your client, the advertiser, following your technical instruction, and some are better than others. And that then leads to a conflict if you're running an affiliate network, if you know your client's tracking isn't great, what do you do about it? So the best thing you can do about it is ensure your client is following your guidance. However, affiliates anecdotally talk about 5% of links don't track, 10% of links don't track. If you talk to a cashback site like Top Cashback, they will say that their transaction query to track sales rate is 9%. So they're saying that that's a good guide to what goes untracked. So Moonpull is about helping people close that gap. And if you think about a publisher who has a revenue of £100, a net profit of £10, if they increase their revenue to £109, their net profit goes up from 10 to 19 in my idealistic world. Yeah. So closing that tracking gap has a massive influence on someone's bottom line, and that's what we want to do.
What's interesting about your choice of business to lead again there is obviously it's in your sweet spot. It's where you've historically made money. It's where you've spent a lot of time over the last, probably, is it 20 years you've been an affiliate now?
Longer, 24 years.
24 years. So it's, your expertise in this area is probably pretty deep. I don't know whether it's unrivaled or not, but if you're seeing that as a problem that needs to be solved, it's probably a pretty big problem that needs to be solved.
Yes, it is. And, you're thrown new challenges along the way. So legislation comes and can impact a business. So in extreme examples, legislation can kill a business. Yeah. Whereas here you've got user consent issues that I think it's quite right that the user has more control over how their data is used, how information is put on their machines. And so you've got cookie directive that goes back to about 2003, 2004, that now has more bite. You've got GDPR, and that is all leading to these consent pop-ups that everyone sees saying, can we set cookies, decline, manage, or accept? So that challenges the channel. Then you've got Apple, who have made a business out of privacy first, protecting the user. And so that challenges tracking. And then Google are sort of falling into line as well. So the business or this sector faces headwinds that the sector has to manage, and different headwinds affect different players in the channel differently. But ultimately, it almost becomes a prisoner's dilemma type of approach to you've got to work together for the greater good. And if you try to solve the problem on your own, then actually you'll end up isolated and worse off.
Are people doing that? Are people coming together to start to solve these problems? I saw you were at a conference recently with a great picture of your daughter on a train station.
Yes, so that was going to Dublin Tech Summit, and that was sort of a slight more general tech conference. But yes, are people coming together? Yes, they are. Some of the issues aren't easy to solve, and people can come together and talk about the stories, and you've got great trade bodies that help, but always there's little bits of competitive advantage from approaching a common problem differently, and different affiliate networks will be approaching the issues slightly differently. Publishers who are different, so they vary from content publishers who might be a CNN or a Daily Mail, through to a voucher code publisher, through to a cashback site. Then you've got other sites like Easy Fundraising out there. So they have different audiences. Some have logged in audiences, some don't. Some have a reason some have a reason for the third party advertiser. So for the advertiser to set a cookie for delivery of the service, which makes it essential. That's cashback. If you can't get your cashback, you're going to be pretty miffed. So that's deemed as an essential service, the setting of that cookie. So that allows them to differentiate themselves from other publishers. People are coming together, but personally, I feel they could come together a little bit more and a little bit faster. But one of the things that if you run a business, you've got loads of fires to fight, and you've got loads of tasks to prioritize. And what seems like someone else's most important problem, with the best will in the world, can be below the fold of what you need to address in your business at that moment in time.
For sure. And we talk a lot about this kind of difficulty in prioritizing the initiatives that you focus on. And hearing you say that, what I'm left thinking is, we're working with a lot of leadership teams, and the marketing team is particularly under fire at the moment. And CEOs, CMOs are used to seeing the affiliate line in their forecasts. And it isn't just affiliate that we're seeing at the moment, whether it's paid search, SEO, and it's the impact of generative AI and the way Google's evolving. Seems to be a lot of channels under attack. It's a pretty difficult space to be in right now.
Yeah, and I would bang the drum for, people call it the affiliate channel. It's really the affiliate model, which is cost per action. If someone buys, someone gets paid, and that can be displayed in lots of different ways on lots of different sites. And in a lot of ways, it's crazy that it's a capped media alongside other media, because if you work your partners correctly, you've got a guaranteed ROI on it. And so there's an amazing podcast on the Moonpull site, actually, with a guy called Jim Nichols, who started his career properly on Madison Avenue, before the internet. And he just has a really simple way of looking at online marketing through a good old-fashioned lens of advertising. And I mean, he talks about the affiliate manager being someone who only talks to the CMO once a quarter when they're all around the boardroom table. So who hit their numbers this quarter? The affiliate guy goes, I did. And that's his quarterly interaction with his CMO, because the rest of the conversation is about, why isn't the paid search doing what we want? Why are we struggling on rankings on SEO? Why are our partnerships not quite doing the thing they should be doing? And it's an unloved channel that just functions very nicely. And again, collaboratively, how does the industry sort of get that cut through? So it's not the third, fourth, 10th line on the media buying schedule, but it's the top line.
Yeah. I think this is probably a worthy small rabbit hole just to dive down. So if I've heard you correctly, in your opinion, CEOs should know, and via their CMOs, that this is probably one of those possibly underutilized, under leveraged channels, and compared to other channels like PPC, which are invariably getting harder to leverage, there is possible an opportunity there if you were to look at this and go, I want to become 8 or 9 out of 10 good at this, as opposed to just being a kind of a nominal line at the bottom of a plan and a forecast.
Yeah, and you may remember the company called Efficient Frontier.
Yeah.
That Efficient Frontier, if you go and Google it, you'll see graphs that economists do about that's where you should stop spending money because it becomes loss making. And I think businesses fly through that efficient frontier sometimes in paid search because they want the volume, and actually they should realize where the efficient frontier is for paid search and the other channels, and look at where the efficient frontier is for affiliate, and generally they're not near it, so they should actually be tweaking that spend. But affiliate marketing, sort of like everything in life, gets pigeonholed. Oh, some people will say that's cash back, and well, we'd have got the sale anyway, which if you look at the incrementality studies isn't true. Some people will say that's vouchers. Oh, those bloody vouchers, the wrong people redeem them, so we don't love the channel for that reason. So rather than exploring how to make it better, most CMOs sort of understand or believe they understand paid search. So paid search does get the eyeballs a little bit too much.
Yeah.
There's a great podcast that came out a few days ago, actually, by Todd Crawford, who has been an affiliate longer than I have, talking about remuneration and the opportunities that there still exist 25 years after he started in the channel, with getting advertisers to just think more maturely about how they want the future to look.
Yeah. I think another sort of area I want to explore with you, as we've got you on the call, is you've obviously been the CEO of a number of companies, invested in many companies, I know that. What do you look for, and what do you see as the most important qualities of a CEO from your perspective?
There is no single set of qualities. Different businesses have different phases, and it's rare that someone can be a CEO of a cashback startup all the way through to 10,000 plus employees, because you go through stages. So one stage is you've started your business, and all of a sudden you realize someone new has started, and you don't know who they are, what position they are, and you realize, crikey, the business has moved on. So you're no longer running it as a family. You're running it as a business where you're setting your culture, but ultimately your culture has to be consistent for everyone. Whereas when you're 3, 4, 5 people, you have the opportunity to sort of be shaping your culture. So at the start, you've got someone who's shaping their culture. Then thereafter, you've got people who can mold their culture. But once you get to 1,000 employees, the CEO sort of broadly has the culture, and it's a super tanker to turn it around. And then at 1,000 employees, things become budget driven. You've got to have the processes of a big company to make it function. So a lot of companies, I've been involved with, your product is a no-brainer for someone to purchase. But 18 months ago, when they were starting to negotiate the budget, in some cases, they haven't got a line for it. Therefore, it's not going to be purchased because it's not in the budget to have that product, even though it's clear it would have an ROI. So big businesses have their their processes, they have their budgets, and you've got to respect it, because colleagues know through the budget process how to interact with each other. You can't have a free-for-all where the boss sort of at a whim says, yeah, you can have an additional product to make your job easier, but you can't. Or, well, I need 2 people to join my team. Well, you can have one of them, but Joe, whose sector I don't really understand, is not going to get the extra person. At least it breaks the culture. It breaks what makes the business work. So the CEO at that stage has to be more budget led, but they've also got to have the skills to realize when it's wrong, and to do a reforecast, to do a restructure, and that becomes an event. Whereas in an extreme example, I remember hiring someone to do something. By the time they turned up, it was, I'm sorry, but what we wanted you to do, we've worked out is not going to be viable, but here's your new role. And we'd hired into the culture there someone who'd go, yeah, that sounds exciting, that's fine. Whereas I would imagine 9 out of 10 people would go, what's going on here? I was hired to do this, and now you're asking me to do something else.
Yeah.
And so that's part of running a really small business, is having the skills to hire the right people to be flexible on the direction of the business that the business is going.
And you covered a lot of that. Obviously, a big part of that is finding talent, and I know you've got a track record of doing that and being good at sort of finding those key hires. And I think you're obviously an advocate, and probably your accountancy background, for good financial management. And as you get bigger, that's obviously key. And when you've got investors involved, as you and I know. And then process, I think you mentioned there as well, which is, you can't make it up as you go along. As you grow, you've got to have better processes, better systems in place that make, whether that's how you procure something or how you approach a certain part of the business, having those locked in, and also allows you to optimize them through time, because no system or process is perfect.
Yeah. And so my brother, who fellow founder of Buyout, the business we sold to AOL, he very much talked about having a control environment, which it followed what people were doing. So if you put the control environment in front of people, you'd stifle their creativity. But the startup needs creativity. So the skill that he and I had was, we knew what people were doing, because we had we were very close to the shop floor, but we didn't actually say, well, you can't do that for this reason, you can't do that for this reason. It was, well, we'll watch and see if that works. And if it works, then we'll bring it into the framework of how this business operates and put some controls around it. So salesmen sort of selling to a target that you think isn't your core target at that moment in time, they may find a fit that you didn't expect. So you just watch it and see whether it's being successful.
So just to summarize what I think you said there is, obviously you've got to build your org and culture around your company stage. You've got to blend different people with different skills, like the innovators with the process people, with the controllers at different places in the org. And you've got to be able to hire or switch out or realize when there's a bad fit of person, when you're at that stage in your growth cycle where you need different people with different roles, responsibilities, skills, attitudes, attributes, or whatever that is.
Yes, and I think one of the big challenges is, as a business is growing, there will be people who reach the end of their ability to be playing that role of seniority. And how do you manage those people? Because they're often great people, they often have great company DNA, they're often actually very, very popular. And how do you find roles for those people when they're they don't have the skills of managing 5 line managers in a department of 30.
Yeah.
But they have an innate ability to make a company of 200 feel comfortable about themselves. And I mean, I heard a great story the other day about, it might have been one of yours actually, about a company that they tried to work out who the most important person was in the business for food spreading information. And it was a multi-site business. And this might be going back 20 or 30 years. And they worked out the most important person for fostering collaboration was the guy doing the deliveries between the sites.
Yeah.
Because he was spreading the gossip between the sites and the stories about who's doing what.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I've got a quick question. So, given your kind of breadth of experience, do you think the COO role was changed in the last sort of few years? Is there anything different to?
Has the CEO role changed? No, I think what they do on a day-to-day basis may have changed, but ultimately someone has got to be in charge of looking to the future and planning the short, medium, and long-term success of a business and delivering it today. And ultimately that's what a CEO is doing. And yes, the framework changes, so the law of employing people changes, the people's expectations. So coming out of COVID, there was discussions about, do you let people work from home? Is it efficient? Do you have hybrid working? And it was quite clear that in some sectors, if you didn't allow people to work from home, they'd go and find an employer that did. So the CEO had to work with their organization to find the most efficient way of serving their customers whilst allowing the people who could work from home to work from home, even if it came with other inefficiencies. So there's now plenty of businesses I know have a lunch and learn once or twice a month, and we do at Moonpull, which is where it's the old company meeting, but it's on Zoom at lunchtime. And you've got to find those ways of working. And I mean, interestingly, again, in affiliate marketing, especially in the US, there's specialists around all sides of the country, and companies are recruiting the person who's available at that moment, who's best able to fill the role they have. And if I go to a conference in the US, I'm meeting teams who only meet each other at the conference I'm attending. So actually, they're in some ways more remote from each other than I would be if I worked for them, because if I worked for them, I would see them at all these conferences anyway. So it won't be more remote, but no less remote.
Have you had any challenges with a remote team, Steve? Obviously, we've when we worked together, we had an office in London, New York, etc. We saw each other frequently, which made life easy. But obviously, we now live in a different world.
I don't love it. I think that being office-based is a better environment for productivity, but in Moonpull, we don't have an office, but the client service team, I'm recruiting within 10 miles of Reading, so we can all meet in Reading if we want to. So we're going to get a culture in the client service team, but we get better at using tools like Zoom, like Slack. I'm an advocate of looking at how AI can make your business better. So AI meeting notes, which I'm probably giving 3 out of 10 at the moment, but they're an aid memoir to what happened. But it does have benefits that people might work slightly later. People might sort of be more willing to answer emails at 7:30 in the morning when they check their phone, because they know that they're going off to a PT session sort of a couple of hours later. And I think the ability to calendar events far more easily across teams makes it easier to be remote. But again, selling and client service is that everyone's happy now to do it across Zoom. So 15 years ago, if you wanted to meet a prospect in the UK in marketing, 50% of the time it necessitated a trip into London. And even if you lived somewhere in London, you could at most do 3 meetings in a day.
Yeah.
Whereas now in Zoom, if you really wanted to, you can do 6 or more meetings in a day. And geography doesn't come into it anymore. So I think home working and the tools that go with it have really changed how you win business and how you serve your clients.
We're seeing that change as well, and I often reflect, though, that all being said, that you can make more calls if you're in the sales team, etc. But I also reflect on maybe some of the most important deals I've seen done, whether I've done them or other people have done them, are actually relationship based and were primarily developed and managed face to face. And I do wonder sometimes whether the bigger end of the deal spectrum can actually be done effectively via remote, or whether it is enabled by human to human chemistry, lunches, dinners, and all the things that you and I have probably done over many years, which are deemed old school now, but actually in the business development environment, I don't see them being lost, and I see them as being important and should be encouraged. I don't know what your view is on that.
So I definitely agree that there's an element of when you buy a new product, you're buying on trust and a belief that it's going to work for you. So you do want to see the whites of somebody's eyes often, and that could be more Zoom calls, more frequent interactions, different sales process. So it might have more on-screen demos, whereas previously it might have been you went into someone's office, you did a formal demo, that was how they saw the product. Now they're better able to say, can you just show me that thing again for 5 minutes? And so the sales process changes. We're just in the process of agreeing for 2 guys to go to conferences in the US over the next 3 months, and that's because I do agree that the face-to-face is really, really important, and that is part of building the trust. And it's amazing how you only need to see someone for 5 minutes face-to-face, and that can build a lot of trust. And when someone goes to their boss to say, I've got this contract, please can you authorize it, the same questions are going to be asked during that final sign-off process as 10 years ago, which is, do you think it's going to add value to your business, to what we do? Is it going to be efficient? Have you met the guys? Might be part of it. What do you think of the people we're going to be dealing with? And oh yeah, he bought me a coffee at Starbucks in the Hilton in Miami. And we just had a good chat, and lots of people slapped his back as they went past because they clearly like him. That can lead to a sale, whereas if you've tried to do it almost as a black box, you don't have that nudge forward.
Yeah. You mentioned AI enablement, and it's something we get involved with quite a lot. We also see within probably mid-sized companies, maybe small to mid, maybe 50 to 250, that they're often getting a lot of assistance from employees, or employees feel threatened by AI to some extent as pertains to their job. How have you approached sort of your comms with your teams around encouraging AI enablement?
We have ChatGPT-4, we use Google Gemini for general questions, developers use Copilot, and generally encourage people to use AI. I think what's frightening is how often it's just plain wrong. So you mentioned the Dublin trip. I did what can you do in Dublin for a day? And it said, well, firstly, you get the air coach train to the centre of Dublin. Pretty explicit, get the train to the centre of Dublin. The air coach, or whatever it's called, is just a coach. So you turn up at the airport with a mental map of looking for station, and you're not looking for a station because there is no train. It is a coach. And that's how it can get things plain wrong. So I would be nervous about using AI to do client reports, because my fear is it would just get the vital number wrong. But as a blank page problem solver, which is, how do I explain affiliate marketing to someone who doesn't know anything about affiliate marketing at all? It didn't do a bad stab at that, and it set it out neatly, gave you paragraphs, gave you bullet points, and rather than taking 3 hours and begrudgingly writing this, it was edit someone else's or something else's document that took 20 minutes. So I definitely encourage people to use it, but it's not going to, with us, it's not going to replace people's jobs. It's just going to make them do things better and faster, and allow us to be more creative in how we develop tech faster, how we serve clients better. I mean, obviously, some businesses it will be replacing employees. And the example I remember now goes back almost 10 years, which is reviewing employment contracts, and AI machine learning platforms spotted more issues than most lawyers. But doctors, why wouldn't you have AI look at the scan and say, this is our view on the scan, and the doctor says, well, that's useful. And it's in there, it's a quality control process. So yeah, AI is obviously going to change a lot of things very quickly, but in our business, it's just going to make us a little bit better at this moment, with potential to be better still in the future.
So you've given me lots of advice over the years, and I've got lots of your sayings in my head. And you gave me one earlier, that small lies become big lies, and you've got a good portfolio of these. If you were giving, and let's call it an early stage business or a scale up CEO, some advice based on the fact that you've been there at the genesis of businesses, and you've obviously scaled and sold them, what would be your best bit of advice?
Well, another one of the lines that immediately comes to mind is spend every penny like it's your last. So you don't splurge early on and then regret it later. And if you've raised 18 months of money, let's say, and a sales cycle takes 12 months from putting a job ad out, hiring somebody 3 months later, getting them up to speed on what your product does 3 months later, they build their own pipeline, they might be paying for themselves after 12 months. So if your business requires you to sell, hire the sales team at the right point. But if you think you're going to be able to sell your way out of a problem 3 months before your money's running out, you're not. So you've got to think about how you're going to be structuring your sales process as early as possible.
That's probably one of the very early bits of advice I had 30 plus years ago as a media planner buyer as well, which lived with me, which is spend clients' money like it's your own. And I think that just general principle is a sound one. Yeah,
I mean, and our expenses policy is one line.
Yeah.
Spend it like it's your own money.
That's very cool.
And it's remarkably easy to look somebody in the eyes and say, did you really spend this like your own money? When it's a taxi receipt from New York to Philadelphia or something. I've never actually seen that one, but I know someone who has. And no, it's not reasonable.
Imagine there's a new CEO and they've come to you for a bit of advice. What's the one thing you would tell them?
Listen to your employees. So for me, I'm not a developer. So my developers know more about the development process than I do. And people can often be not willing to open up about an issue because they fear that their job may be on the line if they start arguing with their boss. So actually make an environment where it's not threatening, but they're encouraged to raise their concerns, because even if one concern out of 10 is valid, that could save you going down the rabbit hole that threatens your business. CEOs should always stay close to clients in early stage businesses, because clients aren't always right, but it's useful to know when they are right, when they are wrong. And so, for instance, I've had 3 clients ask me for something in Moonpull. I don't think it's important. They think it's important. Therefore, I can see their argument, why they want it, and therefore it's going to go into our product roadmap because there's demand for it. So the client prioritizing of the roadmap is different to my prioritizing. If I did it in isolation, so bringing the client's prioritization into the roadmap is important, and I get that by talking to clients. I also get it by talking to our client service people who talk to clients, and little small things can lead to incredible frustrations. And you might have clients who are going to churn for something that actually only takes a day of development to solve, because you've got to listen to them. So to listen to your clients, you've got to listen to your people. And
sage advice.
Yeah. Great advice.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing all of that good stuff.
Okay, it's been really nice talking with you, Matt, with you, Ian.